and welcome to another episode of the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast. I am your host, Neil Horowitz. You can find me on Twitter, NJH287. Hit me up on LinkedIn as well, where I post more content. Visit the website, dsmsports.net, for more episodes and content. And, of course, check out the podcast on whichever podcast platform you prefer. What a great show for you guys today. I know I say that just about every week, but dang, this interview just... time flew by, had a tremendous conversation with a really smart guy, and we could have him back 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes and not run out of stuff to talk about. My guest on the podcast today is Austin Penney. He is social media manager at STN Digital, one of the best agencies in the social space that works with entertainment, sports, and brands. But he's been there for a few months now. We talk a lot about his background at Auburn Athletics, with Auburn football, as well as with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hit on a ton of subjects, just so great. So you're going to want to stick around for that interview with Austin. But first, just to open up this episode, and Austin hits on this, we talk about mental health and him being on the college side where they have a ton of sports, on the college football side where it's long, grinding days, day after day, been on the NFL side. So he definitely understands, as everyone does in social media and sports, I think the grind that it truly is, and really across social media because of the 24/7 nature of it. But sports more so perhaps than any other because of the long hours, because of the crazy game days, because of the never-ending thirst for content. The struggles with COVID this past year, of course, only exacerbated it. And Austin makes a really great point about, do something that you love to do outside of sports, outside of your job. We work in a place that we're passionate about, and that's a great thing because you have to be passionate about the social media and sports space and sports and social in general if you're going to put in those long hours, those long days, work those holidays, and it becomes a part of you, becomes a part of your identity, and you are truly passionate about it. But you need to have other passions in life that you can check out of the sports and social grind once in a while. It's easy to get stuck into it because you're on social all day, whether you are doing it for leisure or for work, and it's hard to turn it off. But that's why it's good to have that escape. So, my recommendation is just to find something that you're passionate about or you have energy you want to put into outside of your job. I'm very passionate about what I do, but I certainly find other ways to sort of tune out once in a while because otherwise you're constantly on and you need to find some time to turn off. So Austin's going to hit on that a little bit, but really just a tremendous conversation with Austin Penney, now a social media manager at STN Digital, and just a tremendous wealth of experience and knowledge. So stick around. Great conversation coming up with Austin Penney. Right back from this episode's opening segment, and I am so psyched for today's guest. We could have just recorded the last 20 minutes or so of our offline conversation, and that would have made a great podcast, but we're going to do this one now. And I'm joined on the podcast today by Austin Penney. He is the social media manager for STN Digital. And welcome to the podcast today, Austin.
Man, I'm so stoked to be on this thing. We should have recorded. There could have been at least a little bit of nuggets that we could have included in the back end of this, or a part 2.
We're going to have a lot of fun geeking out. You have such an impressive background. You already have done so much in your still young career and are now doing great things at STN. But tell us about your career path. Tell us about your background, the various stops you've had along the way, and any tips for folks that want to do what you do.
Yeah, man. So when I was in college, I knew that I wanted to work in sports somehow. I didn't really know all of the different avenues that you could go. So I leaned on my mentor in college, Rick Smith. He really helped me understand that there were a lot of different ways that you could go about working in sports. And so I started out doing play-by-play radio. I did that for at least 2 years and realized, maybe my Southern accent is not the best for play-by-play radio. So then I was like, I still love telling stories. So I hopped into more of a journalism side and reporting. And I worked with 24/7 Sports for a year. Most of that was an internship, and was able to cover the 2013 season, which was extremely fun. Went to the national championship. It's like, hey man, this journalism thing is really what I'm about. I love this. I was covering recruiting, covering the beat, and just really enjoying every single day of doing that. And I got out of college and, I decided, maybe I need to try to do something a little bit different. And I landed a job in media relations as an SID at a very small school in Georgia at the NAIA level. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time that I was like, whoa, this is a lot of work. It is not glamorous. There is a lot that goes into this. I was doing the press releases, doing stat crew,
Oh yeah.
graphics, social media. I was doing everything that you could do for a small school like that. But I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And it really kind of lit a fire that I was going to just grind and I was going to learn everything that I could. And I was going to do my best to be where my feet were and just kind of go through the process. And so the next stop that I had was a level above. It was AUM, Auburn University Montgomery. I worked with Tim Lutz there, who's a freaking legendary SID. And he gave me the ability to get more into social, more into graphic design and video creation. I did cover some teams there, but I was really more focused on the storytelling aspect through creative. And that's kind of where I realized I need to kind of make a path here. Am I going to go on the media relations side and keep going that way? Or am I going to try to go the social media side?
Yeah.
And a year into that, there was a job that opened up at Auburn Athletics, which, you know, the whole time that this is happening, I'm seeing this job, I'm seeing the responsibilities as their social media manager. I'm thinking, I would do anything for that job. Like I will go to the end of the earth for that job. And I went and interviewed with Cassie Arner, who you know very well. And they gave me the opportunity and I worked there for 2 years. I started out as the social media manager for the overall athletics umbrella and then moved into football only. Football, really enjoyed what I did for the athletics side. And I was grinding, you know, I was shooting video, I was doing graphics, I was, you know, leading our digital team. I was really growing into that role and just really enjoying every single step of the way. It was so much fun covering those teams and getting to know those players and our student athletes and just the whole staff. And we were really building a lot of cool stuff there. And then one day I got a call from Jess Smith, who you also know, was asking if I was interested in, you know, possibly interviewing with the Buccaneers. And, you know, I was, I think 27, 26 at that time, and thought there couldn't be anything cooler than working for an NFL team. I absolutely am interested. So I went down to interview and really didn't think I was going to get the job again. I'm just a kid from Alabama. I didn't really expect anything out of it, but I was there. I was at One Buck Place and I was like, that's a huge accomplishment just to be able to be in the running for it. And they ended up offering me the job. Me and my wife had to leave Auburn, our beloved Auburn, and we went down there and lived in Tampa for 2 years and had the times of our lives, met so many great people, you know, worked there. And last March, right before the world stopped turning, Gus called me and asked me if I wanted to come back and be his creative director at Auburn.
Wow.
And again, that's my dream job. That has always been my dream job, is to be that, you know, person for Auburn football, the team that I love more than anything, you know, except my wife. And then, so I had that opportunity, came back there, and for a year I worked, you know, guiding the brand, creating, overseeing our social and recruiting strategy, all those different things. And then unfortunately, when my man Gus Malzahn was let go, I was also let go. The hard part in college athletics, when you're on a staff like that, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
It didn't work out, but what it gave me was an opportunity to kind of reset and rethink where I wanted to be mentally and what I really wanted to do and the passions that I wanted to follow. And this opportunity came up with STN that had people that I knew that had gone to that company and praised it and said, you know, this is the place to be if you're in social content and social strategy. And I ended up getting that job. Man, I've been there for the last 3 months and cannot say enough great things about the company, the culture, what I get to do, the clients that I get to work with. And so, yeah, that's the rundown of my last 7-8 years.
Amazing, man. Like I feel like you've done enough to last like multiple lifetimes in the social media and sports world, and yet you're still just getting started. And it's just super cool and inspiring and really just encouraging to hear how you've been able to have those dream jobs and worked your way up there. You know, you had that time when you were at the NAIA school, and I think everyone that has been at the college level or minor league level knows the the struggle and opportunity of running Stat Crew while also live tweeting, while also trying to take photos and and keeping up with press releases and quotes and stats and clips. So yeah, you definitely put in the time and were able to develop a lot of skills along the way. How did that come about for you? It sounds like you definitely start out on that journalism path and working for 24/7 Sports. One of the biggest recruiting companies in the organizations in the world and publications in the world, or the country, I guess, where recruiting is based. But was there a time were you always kind of able to have those creative capabilities of making graphics, videos, and would you call yourself a creatively inclined or artistic person, or did you kind of have to pick that up in order to continue to move up in the sort of the storytelling, social media space?
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying this. I have gray hair. All right. It is coming in hot, and it definitely feels like I've worked 25 years in this industry because of how many different things I've done, places I've worked in, stressful situations I've been in. But no, I think the thing is for a lot of younger creatives, you have to have that initiative. You've got to kind of figure out what lane you want to go in there. And that is the thing. You don't have to know everything when you graduate. You don't have to know, oh, I want to be a head SID down the road, or I want to, be a video producer. Do what you really like. And more than anything, don't be afraid to try new things. When I was at Point, my background in college was radio, television, and film. So I had a lot of experience in video, but I had almost zero experience in Photoshop. And so I just went on YouTube and I learned the foundation, all the fundamentals that I possibly could in Photoshop. And as I started to grow throughout my career, especially at those lower level schools, there wasn't a graphic designer, or there wasn't a videographer or any sort of producer. It was me. And so you had to get in there and you had to learn all those things. And so I started creating when I was earlier, more shallow in my career. And then as I started to move into, especially the Bucks role, I was way more strategy, overseeing things and creating at a very micro level, but it's always been a background of mine, or it's always kind of been a part of me, creating. And what I will say about that whole side of things is, even if you want to be in media relations, or if you want to work in a different, side of sports, if you can create and you understand that nomenclature of how creatives think and talk and, ingest ideas and different concepts, when you get to the level where you're the person that's kind of laying out the plan of how things are supposed to go, how to talk to them and how to understand, what makes them, hear an idea and actually bring that to life. And I would say that is one of the biggest skills that I've been able to have throughout my career, because I was a creative at first, and now I'm able to understand what resonates with creatives when they're trying to do their thing.
Yeah, I love that insight. It's a great point, because I kind of look at it from in my recent roles of being on the tech side, of knowing just enough so that you know how to speak to the really talented tech folks, and know kind of what is a fair ask. Like, oh, can this be done in an hour? Is this going to take a week? Or is this even possible to do without third-party resources? Or I know you can do this. So it's the same way I feel like with talking to a creative, like, yes, I can create this incredibly intricate motion graphic, but if you want it in 30 minutes, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And so being able to have the understanding, I'm sure does help significantly. And you mentioned going to that Bucks role and having that strategic outlook, and not necessarily creating everything that was going out on the channels. And what was that transition like for you to look at it more from a strategic lens, learn how to be very detailed in writing a brief, and ultimately too, I guess as a follow-up of going from thinking about every single one of Auburn's several sports to having one team to worry about with the Bucks?
Yeah, Neil, it was such a learning curve, because I was still fairly young in my career when I made that transition, and everything that we did at Auburn was based around recruiting. I mean, at the end of the day, you're creating content to show what it's like to be an Auburn Tiger, really kind of give that 14 to 18-year-old the best insight of what it would be like if they came and played a sport and, you know, studied at Auburn. So that was our goal every single day, is how can we create content that's just going to show that. And when I transitioned over to the Bucks, you know, we were so good at short form video with Auburn. That was one of the first things that I wanted to bring over to the Bucks, but we're not looking for recruits with the Bucks. You know, we are very much revenue based. We're trying to create content that's going to, you know, lock in the best engagement rate and grow off of, you know, Twitter, and how are we going to be able to get, you know, good numbers on our pre-rolls, even on YouTube. And, you know, it's not necessarily about just growing platforms, but it's doing it the way that we know that we should. Are we putting out content that our fans are actually engaging with? And then to take that a step further, how are we locking in on the 14 to 18-year-old next crop of NFL fans?
Yeah.
You know, are we showing content that's resonating with them? So it went from recruiting to, okay, revenue. Let's do our best to create content, sell media, you know, work with corporate partnerships to make sure that we're marrying the right content to the right partner. And then it's like, okay, how are we going to do our job so we can make sure that 10 years from now, we're still able to have a job because that next crop of fan is coming. So, and that's every professional sport, league, everything. They're looking ahead. And that's why you're seeing everybody so in on TikTok and so in on continuing to be on Snapchat and obviously Instagram for what it's worth. But yeah, that was the biggest change. And, it happened fast, man. And I was very blessed because I had Christy Bedan, who's the VP of digital and media with the Bucks. She was so understanding of, hey, you've been in this space in college for a while and you're coming to a different world, even though it's still football. And she was always there to help me better understand what I needed to do for my job to do it the best way. So she was awesome. She really, really helped me grow in that role.
Yeah, it's a great way to sum all up of all those different goals that you're trying to accomplish. And in college, it very much is like recruiting is number 1, number 2, number 3, and then maybe 4 and 5 are like, yeah, keep donors happy, ticket sales here and there, and activating our Fox College or our MMR partnerships. But yeah, it's definitely, you know, what number 1 goal is. And on the pro side, it's everything related to revenue, which can mean a lot of things. It can mean creating fans of tomorrow. It can mean creating fans today. It could be driving ticket sales. It could be sponsorship and still keeping fans engaged as well. I guess something I want to hear about a little bit is that brand. I think you know Auburn. You know, you're if you have a kid, your kid's first words are going to be War Eagle. or maybe if he or she is in the room when you're watching the game too much, it might be War Damn Eagle. But but going to the Bucks, like, do you kind of have to understand this is the brand, this is the story that they're putting out there, this is who they want to be. There's a lot of ways to have success on social and in telling stories and creating engagement metrics that might be good to monetize, but they're not all created equally when you want to make sure you're doing so in a way that is true to the brand and the story that the Bucks went out there. So what was that process like to understand that and then ultimately articulate that and execute against that on the platforms?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate when I came into the Bucks. They were doing a slight rebrand in what they were wanting to be. They were kind of starting to put together what their pillars were going to be. You know, we had fearless, we had being piratical and really taking advantage of our mascot and who we are. We had being heartfelt when we needed to be heartfelt. Those are really some of the top things that we were going after as a brand. And, you know, when you kind of look at those three, it's kind of not the best coupling because, you know, you don't want to be on one side, like, you know, clapping back at, you know, trolls on social, but then, you know, you're putting a cool video out of a kid that is getting to meet his favorite football player and you're doing a little bit more of, hey, let's share this smile right now. So, right. You know, building that over time, we really started to get the hang of what our voice was and who we were. And we went into an approach where we were different on each platform, and not to the degree where we were a completely different brand or voice, but we were a little bit more of a pillar on each platform. On Twitter, we were way more engaging. We knew that we had to constantly be talking back to fans, not in a bad way, but, talking back to fans and engaging with them, making them feel like they were a part of this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
On Facebook, we started a Facebook group for our fans, and we would always be in that, engaging with them, giving them opportunities for giveaways and that type of thing. So we were a little bit more not necessarily reserved, but we were more appreciative, I guess you could say, as a brand. Mm-hmm. On Instagram, there was times where we were telling people to walk the plank because they were, clapping at us and saying how terrible of a game we had or how bad we were. And we're just like, hey, you know what? Whatever, we're coming after you at times. So we broke it down in a lot of different ways. So we always were in our pillars of what we wanted to be as an overarching brand, but we were a little bit flexible in which one of those pillars that we were, kind of putting at the top of the priority list per platform.
No, I think it makes complete sense. And speaking to different audiences and even just different ways that people function on a given platform and what they're expecting. And you can still be true to a North Star while shifting the tone of how you're speaking and how you're engaging and on an everyday basis as well. Did you notice, especially, I think it's cool for you to have that you were right there, and then this season they have this dream season, and Tom Brady gets signed, and it becomes I'm sure it was tough a little bit at times to watch from afar. But tell me, like, did you notice that as they got to be very successful and maybe got swag, like, one, is that something that you typically have seen in your career being at Auburn when you guys were winning versus when you were losing, and then seeing as a third-party observer both internally and externally with the Bucs? Is there a shift in strategy and opportunity and tone when the team is riding high? And Auburn knows it's a share of roller coasters as well when it comes to wins and losses.
Oh yeah, the neck hurts from the different peaks and valleys, no doubt about it. I will say from the Bucs standpoint, we started out as being more of a underdog, chip on our shoulder. We were, kind of picking our fights and or battles, whatever, on social when we wanted to. But even as I was when I was ending my time there, we were transitioning our brand even before we, the Bucs had all these crazy signings with Tom and, Gronk and, Lenny Fournette, all those guys before they got there. We were transitioning our brand to be a little bit more of a luxury brand. We have a very nice facility. We have a really cool stadium. We want to give our fans the best experience that they can have when they go there. When they go to a game, we want to make them feel like they are investing their money in a worthwhile experience. And we just kind of wanted to feel like we were almost a Mercedes in the NFL. And when that started, we're figuring out what our look's going to be and what our pillars are going to be. Then you start to have these signings where you're getting Tom, you're getting these guys, and the hype is starting to build. And then you're rolling out this new brand. You can see it from last kind of February into April, the brand transition, along with the jersey change. That's kind of what helps spur that on. And then you get a brand that is high class. You get a brand that's really focused on the customer service side. And look how cool we are. Look, you want to be a part of this. You definitely want to be a part of this. Look, we're winning now. But even as an outsider looking into last season when training camp was starting, throughout the season as they were winning games and they were beating teams that they haven't beaten in a long time. And then, these huge stats are starting to pop up, and then you go into the playoffs and then you beat Green Bay, and then all these things start falling into place. And then at the end of it, you win a Super Bowl, and this brand that you have hoped that you would have is there, and it's really living there, and it's exactly what you wanted. Now, I will say, winning solves all of your problems. So anytime that you are winning, everything is accelerated 2 times. Everything is going great. You don't really have a lot of issues that pop up. Your content is gold, every single thing that you throw out there. So that definitely helps it, but they had the perfect storm last season to transition into that new look and feel and who they were on social. And so winning that Super Bowl, that's the king of luxury right there. So they were all over it, and they knocked it out of the park.
I love that. I love that perspective too of building a brand that fans want to be part of, that is desirable, and then it becomes something that brands can, or corporate partners can latch on to as well, and makes it that much more monetizable from a digital and social platform perspective as well.
Absolutely. And that's the honestly, that's the most important thing that we could do with the Bucks is figure out a piece of content that we knew was going to be super cool on social, that would really have a wide ranging, engaging, series or a franchise that we could put out, and then company it with the right partner. And by the end of my time there, that's what I had so much of my focus on. And by the end of my time there, me and corporate partnerships were best friends. Like I was like, yeah, here's like 4 ideas that we could do that we would be great for lens crafters, or, like all that type of stuff. So that is one of the most important things for sure.
No, I love that. A quick anecdote related to that, I guess, and then I want to move on to a couple other things as well. I had a recent podcast guest on from the Bulls, Joe Pinchin, who's the manager of digital content there, and he gave some good insight saying how don't think of sponsors and partners as a burden, like, oh, we got to do the sponsor content. It's an opportunity. It's like it lets you think of crazy cool ideas that you may not be able to do unless it was sponsored, and unless it does find the right sponsor to go with it. So you can look at it from one angle or the other, but if you choose to look at the opportunistic angle, it becomes a lot more palatable in that case.
Dude, that is exactly right. And from coming from the college space where I wasn't necessarily working on that as much, that just really wasn't in my role, to then moving into that with the Bucks, and over time understanding that, yeah, it's just a part of growing in the social side. You're, as a social media manager, most of the time you're like, I just want to make rad content, I want to get cool, I want to go viral, like I want to have all these cool things. It's like, well, the bread and butter to this whole thing is making money and doing it the right way, and partnering with people who share the same beliefs and whatever about the culture, and just there. So we put such a huge emphasis on that. By the end of my time there, we were in such a good place, and partners were coming to us instead of us having to seek them out. So that's 100% right on.
I love that. I really liked hearing about the Bucks Facebook group as well that you started speaking to. And heck, I think back to when my man Jeff Neal was there, and this is before your time, and they were I think among the early teams that did, like, I want to say, like, DM meet and greets, when that was like a small fad with like season ticket holders. They had like a player going in the Twitter DMs. But no, I kind of bring that up, but it's cool that deeper engagement element with your diehard fans. And I kind of want to hear how you look at that from an Auburn lens as well, where yes, you have the fans that are all over the subreddit, that are calling into the Feinbaum show, that cannot get enough Auburn content. But then to your point, you are every day focused on, we got to make sure we're reaching the 14, 15, 16-year-olds that are going to be the recruits or the applicants of tomorrow. While also, yes, we have these diehard fans. We have these folks that are season ticket holders, that are donors, that are constantly talking about us and driving conversation. So I guess first off, on a platform side, whether you're with the Bucks or with Auburn, are you looking out for those platforms where the young people are residing? And then how do you ultimately think about dividing your time and resources among, hey, we want to make sure we are deeply engaging these diehard fans because they are our evangelists, but we also need to split some X% of time to focusing on the fans or applicants or recruits of tomorrow?
Yeah, it's crazy how those two separate, and how at the end of the day they're both at the Bucks and at Auburn. They're both important to be looking at your diehards, but it's so different. I mean, it's just such a different world, because with the Bucks, you want to continue to drive that fan engagement and be there for them, and know that you've got their back, and that you're excited and proud to have them as a fan of your team. So you're putting a little bit more time and effort into it, because that is such a huge deal to have your season ticket holders know that you love that they're coming to the game, and they're buying season tickets, and they're bringing their friends, and then their friends become season ticket holders. And you want them to trash talk another fan base and be like, your team doesn't do this for y'all. Like if you're I'm not going to call any teams out, but if you're like a so-and-so fan, and you as a Bucks fan, you literally have a pipeline directly to your team where you're actually conversating with them. you feel like you really are a part of the organization. So that's why we put so much time and resource on that. Shout out to Jill Beckman for really going in on that and helping grow that thing. She was a rock star and helping get that going. And and it's funny that you asked that about Auburn, because Josh Wetzel and I at Auburn had talked about creating a fan page for Auburn. But Neil, what college fans are on a whole different planet. And I love the passion and everything that goes into college sports or college athletics, but it is almost impossible to govern a fan base on Facebook. Yeah. There is no telling how that would go, especially knowing they're taken care of in a lot of ways because of 24/7 Sports or Rivals. Mm-hmm. You know, they have a message board and they have moderators there, and they have people that are reporting on the team unbiasedly and giving them information and that kind of thing. So they're a little bit more taken care of than the pro fan. The pro fan has Reddit and maybe a couple of beats that have message boards. So they're kind of taken care of on the college side. Pro side, we were all in on it. We want to do everything we could to be there for them.
No, that's a really good point. I can definitely think back to when we were working together and thinking back like, oh yeah, let's pull in a feed of like fan tweets or War Eagle tweets, and it's like, oh yeah, no, that's not happening.
yeah, man. Especially depending on the game, you're like, yeah, we probably should hold off this week.
The team's losing at halftime, all of a sudden it's like hashtag fire Gus or whatever. If it's like, it's just, yeah.
Pull the feed, Neil.
College fans are the greatest and also the most passionate and dangerous in some ways as well.
Man, they're like Baker Mayfield, man. They're feeling dangerous every Saturday. They're ready to rock.
And so we have these awesome opportunities of deep engagement, of also driving just engagement in general with the brand to open up opportunities for monetization and for just better conversation and fan development. And then you have a platform like TikTok that pops up where if you put the right content out there, all of a sudden you can go viral and have those 500,000 views, millions of views or whatever. But there may be 150,000 of those might be outside of the country or in China or who knows where. And it's like, how do you think about, there's this platform where we can really hit some huge numbers that I know my boss's boss will like, but how do we divide our time between reaching these masses that if 1% of them become Bucks fans or Auburn fans or whatever it might be, that's great for us. But then there's also these other platforms where if we hit the same number, then we're going to get 10% of those fans or 50% of those. Like, how do you look at those, especially with TikTok being this not new shiny toy anymore, but this opportunity where you truly can go viral with one right post?
Yeah, I mean, you make such a good point because every platform has its own world, really, and you may have fans or followers that follow you on every single platform, and kind of going back to my earlier point about having a different voice on there, that kind of gives them incentive to follow you on everything. But from like actually breaking it out and figuring out where we're going to put our resources, it's really prioritization of the buckets of the people that we're trying to hit. And with the Buccaneers, it was our core fan base. That was our number one demo. And then after that, it was, trying to reach that younger demographic and, the next crop of fans. So we were putting so much time and effort in Instagram. And towards the end of my time, we were getting into TikTok and we were slowly putting things out. TikTok, TikTok's exploded, man. It's staying. It ain't going nowhere. That thing is here to stay. But in that same right, we were doing everything that we could to tap into trends and reach that younger demographic, because it's so important to have them on your team once they get old enough to be able to come support you. So and then Twitter, we use that so much for engaging, actually getting in and replying to tweets and quote tweeting fans and that kind of thing. But when things kind of changed for us, is for especially me moving to Auburn and getting back into that side, we had to look at it like recruiting is number one. And especially me working for football, it's a little bit different when you're on the athletic side, because your overall goal is a little bit different. You are working with Fox Sports and you're trying to, put out different pieces of content that are sold. And, you are trying to be the voice of the Auburn or the Auburn fan base. So, you've got a lot of different irons in the fire from that side. For football, it is recruiting. And so we were heavy on Instagram. We knew what wasn't going to work and what was going to work on Twitter. So we kind of chose our battles there. But then we started getting on TikTok, and we really started doing a little bit more with showing the personality side. And, like I was talking about earlier, just kind of showing what it was like to be an Auburn Tiger.
Yeah.
So that's just the way that you break it up. I mean, we've talked about it already, but every platform is different. Every platform is going to have a key demo that you're going to hit. And once you figure that out and you kind of understand that better, you can really start to attack it and divvy up your resources better.
Yeah. It's like you don't go into TikTok to help to really focus on your goal of reaching more 40 to 60 year olds or whatever. And
right.
You have to know why you're there. And yeah, you may reach some of those users just by default or by accident almost, or by fortune, but that you're not programming for that demographic on that platform. And so you can definitely appreciate those perspectives. I do want to. I found it super interesting that that you were almost attached to the hip to a football coach. I think a lot of people may or may not know that football coaches will bring in their own guys. Like when you were at the Bucks, Gus called you because he wanted you to be his guy for the football program, and that's first off, that's a really cool endorsement from a high level coach who we wish him the best now at UCF. But like, what's that process like of creating? Yes, your goal is help us reach the 14 to 18 year olds that we're trying to recruit, and then how much from there is it working with Gus and with the other staff, the rest of the recruiting staff, of this is the story we want to put out there. Hey, we just put this in our facility. We want to make sure we blow that out. This is what we consider cool. Or is it really, hey, this stuff better than we do. Do your thing, and we'll hopefully get some 4 and 5 stars.
Yeah, I will say it's a trip to be close to a coach like that or any of the coaching staff. It's crazy. I mean, especially thinking back to when I was in college, I would have never thought in a million years that I would be, friends or, working with a coach of that magnitude. I mean, he's one of the best coaches that's ever done it. But the guy is awesome. I love him. And he called me back to lead the charge and work with him and really bring his team to life on social and really help with recruiting. And man, he just gave me all of the resources that I need to be able to do that, and even in a COVID year, like we were in last year, he made sure that I was able to hire a graphic designer, and I got Vinny Nardella, who is a freaking boss, man. And, he gave me the ability to have the right videographers that I want. And I had, Carter Gusson, who was doing such an amazing job. And, just the list goes on. But, he had that trust in me. And if I didn't have that, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do my job that great, because, there are some situations where, a coach may be tipped off on a guy or a girl to come in and lead them creatively, but they don't really know them, or they don't really, know exactly what their best set of skills are. And so they may not be as successful because they're just having to, tread water and do everything the coach says. And they're afraid to go against the coach because the coach is the head coach of a major football program. But I was fortunate enough to really work and build that relationship with him. By the time that we got back in the office, I was meeting with him weekly. I was giving him my pitches on pieces of content that I think that would resonate really well. He was giving me his feedback. He may have something on his mind that he thinks would be great to cover, and man, we'd cover it. We'd get it done. But it wasn't, I was in such a good situation because I never felt like, oh man, I got to say yes to every single thing he says, or I feel like I, am not able to be myself around him. I was me and he was him, and it made our working relationship so good. And yeah, man, I can't say enough great things about that guy. He's been there for me and really helped me out, and just giving me the opportunity that I always wanted to be able to work there and do that.
Oh, I love it. And you can keep on cheering from afar now. I guess you can become a quasi UCF fan.
Oh man, look, hey, Eric DeSalvo, I talked to him last week. I said, hey man, I'm ordering my UCF gear. I just want you to know that we are all in on the night. So No, we're all in, man. Me and my wife, we're cheering them on. They've got, they brought a lot of the coaching staff down there. So a lot of people that I know that are coaching for them and helping out with the support staff. So yeah, I'm all in on the UCF train this
great.
year.
Just one more minute left here with Austin Penny, social media manager for STN Digital. Then we'll get to the episode shareable stat. But Austin, the time is just flying by. I want like another hour with you. But I do want to touch because it's been the story for the last year, I guess, in college athletics. Realignment notwithstanding, but name, image, and likeness, NIL. So when that all of a sudden becomes a reality that this is really happening, this isn't just talk anymore. That by summer of 2021, college athletes are going to be able to monetize their NIL. What's that process like? What was it like when that news when that became a reality inside Auburn football? And what actions did you guys take early on? Just kind of take me inside of that time when you guys started to really prepare for that and capitalize on it.
Yeah. Like a lot of schools, maybe 4 or 5 years ago that were early adopters with Opendorse or Influencer, there definitely were some outliers that were thinking, this could be a reality down the road where, our student athletes could actually generate revenue off of their name, image, likeness. And so we really, when I was all in on football at Auburn, we took that very seriously, because at the end of the day, the student athlete is the most important thing that you have on your campus. I mean, admin is great. They obviously keep the ship moving in the right direction. Your creatives and everybody is super important, but without the student athlete, nothing's happening, And so we wanted to do everything that we could on our side to give them content, make sure that they understand social media best practices, help them with verifications or anytime they got locked out of their account, help them with content ideas. And this was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And, I went to the Bucks and I understood so much more about how players make that transition from college to NFL and how their brain kind of switches from, okay, I need to be ringing off more endorsement deals. I need to be thinking of who I am and, what my social presence is. So I learned a lot about that transition and kind of where their mindset was. And so when we came back when I came back to Auburn, NIL was really heating up. And so we just started going all in with how can we really give our student athletes the best tools to be able to be successful and at least start building their social presence and identifying who they are as a brand on social. And so I was talking to student athletes every single day, whether it was, hey, what pieces of content do you think I should be creating? How can I really resonate with my fans? How can I tell my story along with the Auburn story? All these different things, and arming them and giving them the confidence to start posting and start doing their thing, whether it's video gaming on Twitch or doing vlog life and showing what they're doing behind the scenes or whatever. I mean, the ideas are limitless. It just gave them that sense of, these guys really want to help me, and they don't care. Like, yeah, you may be a 5-star or 4-star coming in or playing, starting on Saturdays, but at the end of the day, we want to give you everything that you can have to be successful in your professional career. That's a professional athlete or a professional in whatever you choose to be. So we were early adopters. There are obviously a lot of people that were in on that with creating video and photo for them, but it really kind of built that foundation of some of the hardest things that we need to do for NIL is already taken care of. We already understand that, our athletes are already in on these platforms. They understand how to get content. They understand all that. So really it was just kind of being like, hey, we're going to educate you more. We're going to give you more of an understanding of, what's the best content out, how are platforms changing, and, what's the landscape out there. And, before I left, I really wanted to get into where we were teaching classes, we were in their schedule. So, every monthly or bi-weekly, we were coming in and we would have 30 minutes to just be like, hey, here's how the platforms have changed. Here's some of the content that is, going off from other student athletes or other professional athletes. Here's something you could tap into and just give them a quick rundown. And so that was really kind of what we were building towards to have there. Fortunately, not there. I'm not able to implement it. But anybody listening, get in there and teach your student athletes about how to do this thing. They will be forever grateful. That will keep them happy, and it will get them into a place where they can truly look back at their experience in college, and they will have learned so much more because you were there for them.
Oh, I love that. No, we've opened up a huge Pandora's box of conversation topics here. I would love to go down the rabbit hole. I mean, it's just so cool to hear like you guys were helping them build their brands. And NIL, the only thing that did was maybe operationalize a little bit more, and then teach them how to file their taxes maybe to some degree. Also. the brand building part was already in place, and that's super important. And I love the point too around educating and teaching them how to use the tools better. It's easy to take it for granted. Like, yes, you are in the social media space. You work in it every day. You live it. You breathe it. You know what the latest tools are. You know how to use all the tools. And yes, it may be easy to say, oh yeah, these are the digital natives. They've been using this stuff since they were in diapers. But it's not. You can't take for granted that every athlete, whether pro or college, knows how to use a TikTok green screen, knows how to set up a Twitch stream for to put their video gaming on Twitch, knows how to do X, Y, and Z. And so being able to help them do what they want to do better is just so key. And I love that mindset and that perspective. And I hope to see a lot of schools do that. And it'll be a cool space to continue to watch, because the content's only going to get better and better as more and more athletes become more capable as well.
It is, man. And you got to normalize it. Like, you have to really put it into their daily life or their weekly life. They're so programmed. They're going to practice. They're doing a study hall. They're meeting with their mentor. They're, going through workouts. They're doing all these things, and they're in this routine. You got to add this to their routine so they feel like it's normalized and it's something that they should be taking advantage of. And I mean, yeah, they grew up in it, but everybody has an oven. That doesn't make them a culinary expert. Totally. That doesn't make them a chef, so you got to get in there and really help them better understand how to utilize the platforms. And that's one way that you can do it. It's so easy, and they would be so appreciative of the help.
You mean not everyone that just because they have an Instagram account that they can tell you how to do your job and how to use them?
They would like to tell you otherwise in the comments. I can tell you that.
I'm sure no social media manager can relate to someone telling them how to do their job, even though they have never worked in the space.
We're just an intern. We're just interns. That's all.
Oh man. Well, Austin, we can keep going with all this stuff. We're gonna have some more fun with you coming up in our Rolling Tumors Corner segment. But first episode's shareable stat. We'll be right back with that. Man, what a tremendous conversation with Austin Penney, social media manager at STN Digital. Could really just pick his brain all day. Really thoughtful with sharing his ideas and perspective, and just so much great stuff out of that interview. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. But we're going to have some more fun with Austin and hear some great stories and get some more insight in the Rolling Tumors Corner segment, very much named for his time at Auburn, where after big wins, they go and they roll the trees at Tumors Corner, meaning they throw toilet paper all around, and it's a hell of a scene. If you haven't seen it, Google some videos. It's just great. So stick around for that segment with Austin. But first, episode's shareable stat. This episode's shareable stat comes from the recent acquisition of Cristiano Ronaldo by Manchester United, going back to where he previously played and had so much success. And a crazy stat that their global head of social media, Nick Speakman, shared on Twitter, that their Instagram post announcing Cristiano Ronaldo, which as of this recording is now nearing 13 million likes, is the most liked post by a sports team in the history of Instagram. Pretty darn crazy. Not too surprising with Cristiano Ronaldo having over 200 million followers on his Instagram. But it goes to show that how much the fans really love these players. And yes, your team is never going to get someone as big as Cristiano Ronaldo, because there really is only one Cristiano Ronaldo when it comes to the sheer scale and size of his audience and the excitement around him. But every time you get a new player, you get a micro version of that. You get, especially these days, as more fans are fans of players as much as they are teams, if not more so. And we've had some global football teams, global soccer teams on this podcast before in the past, talking about how if they get a player from Korea, from Mexico, from wherever it may be on their club, all of a sudden they get this huge influx of fans from that respective country. The same thing happens oftentimes in the NBA, whether it was talking to Chris Gehring when he was at the Wizards and how they got a bunch of fans from Japan with Rui Hachimura.
just whenever you get a new player, especially a named player, there's a good chance that that player has a lot of fans who have been following him or her on their Instagram and on their various social channels, and really become a huge fan of them, not just the team they play on, but the player themselves. So how can you maximize those moments when a big name player or a named player in some way, whether it's coming out of college or in the pros, certainly a veteran, comes to your team? How can you help welcome in those new fans, bring those fans into your umbrella? Find different ways to tell stories and to connect with those fans over their love of this player and what he or she now means to the new team that they're on, and how they're going to fit into that community and that culture. So it's definitely a big number. Again, nearing, I think, 12.9 now, nearing 13 million likes of the post by Manchester United on Instagram announcing the reacquisition or the acquisition of Cristiano Ronaldo. Just crazy, the biggest one by a sports team ever. And we'll see if they can break it while Ronaldo is playing for them, or perhaps with Messi and Neymar at PSG, we'll give them a run for their money at some point. But pretty crazy stat. Think about it, ponder it, take action on it. But more importantly, stick around because we're going to have a ton of fun rolling Tumors Corner with Austin Penny of STN Digital.
Right back from this episode's shareable stat, and I am joined again by Austin Penny. He is the social media manager for STN Digital. Austin, just could spend hours and hours with you. I really appreciated that great interview. Are you now ready to roll Tumors Corner? Because you kicked ass.
I am ready to rock and roll, man. Sleeves are rolled up. Let's do it.
I love it. Number one, tell me your favorite all-time contemporary, to keep it in the relative recent times, your favorite all-time contemporary Auburn athlete.
Oh, man, this is tough. I have to go with Cam Newton. He was there. I was in college when we won a national championship, and I mean, my grade point average suffered a little bit, but boy, oh boy, was that some of the greatest times that I could possibly have, being with my best friends in the world that I still, hang out with all the time, and just sharing that. And it was because of Cam. I mean, Nick Fairley had a pretty good deal there too. And shout out to Gus, who also helped, but man, Cam, what a guy.
Did you ever see him like walking around campus like a normal student? Like, was that even possible for him?
It definitely got to a point where he couldn't, but I have a funny story. Me and my roommates went to Walmart on South College one night to, I think, get some toothpaste and like just random toiletries. And we walk in, and in that foyer part of Walmart, Cam Newton was standing there. And I knew who he was because I followed recruiting like a crazy person. And I knew exactly who he was. And I was like, that's Cam Newton. But I said it out loud. So he heard me say, that's Cam Newton. And he just looks at me and he was like, yes, sir. And then walks out. It really happened in real life. And that was my being right next to Cam Newton moment.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. I love that story. Number two, going back to your time with Tampa Bay Bucks, tell me your favorite piece of content, whether it was the most popular or not, just one that really sticks with you from your time with the Bucks.
So this is another tough one, Neil. Jeez. I would have to go with In the Current. That was our version of Hard Knocks, and it was kind of a storytelling of where we were in training camp in the season. And we started it out as just like a quarterly project where it was just going to cover the training camp. And then once we got in the season, we weren't going to do it. It went off, and majorly because of Stephen Lynch, our lead producer at the Bucks. He is one of the best video producers in the game, period. He made that thing his baby, and we started doing that thing for an entire year. So it was almost monthly, pretty much monthly for, golly, I think like 9 months. But they're still doing it. And the cinematography involved, the storytelling, all the work that goes into the back end of that thing to make it look the way it looks, and to be able to do it every month with a fairly limited production team. Oh my God, it was so good. Yeah, go check that out if you get a chance. I think they have a newer episode they put out either last week or the week before, but it's just so cool. It's so cool. And it's free. You don't have to have an HBO subscription. You can watch it on social for the Buccaneers.
Hell yeah. It like for all the fans that wish their team was on Hard Knocks, there's a lot of amazing stuff like that teams are putting out there themselves that I'm glad to hear that the Bucks are among them, and we're giving their fans all that great access and that ability to connect at an intimate level.
Yeah, man.
Number three, one more Bucks question is they obviously won the Super Bowl this year. We're not with them not that long ago. I'm sure a lot of coworkers are still there, and I don't know if it had to cross your mind at least once of like, what if? I keep wearing a ring on my finger right now. So I guess just an open-ended question. Answer however you like. What was it like watching the Bucks win the Super Bowl this past year?
If I had to sum it up in one word, it would be wild. I couldn't believe that it happened. It was probably a day after I started at Auburn. They signed Tom Brady, and I knew at that moment that things would change. Just a player of that magnitude, they would land every free agent that they wanted. They already had an insanely good coaching staff there. And it was just pretty much a matter of getting the right pieces and executing. And as that season was going on, I was like, they look pretty good. They may actually make a run here. And Super Bowl comes up, they win the Super Bowl, and I was just like, wow. There was because there was still so much of like love for everybody that I worked with down there, and how excited I was that, you know, they had gone through all these seasons with the Bucks that were just really hard to go through. And we had a saying down there. It's a Bucks life. Anytime something weird would happen, or, you know, just bad luck for the Bucks, and we would just be like, it's a Bucks life. And like, I'm sure that they never said that last year, and that phrase has just been completely deleted from the earth. But no, it was just me sending out texts to everybody, being so stoked for them, and really just excited for them. Even though I didn't get a ring, I felt like I still had a pretty good mark on some of the things that they were doing throughout the season. So I still feel like I was like a microcosm of being a part of it. But
No, totally.
no, it's awesome.
And I love the fact that, you know, working in the space and getting to know a lot of people. Like, if my parents ask me, oh, who are you rooting for in this championship or in the playoffs, or whatever it might be, like, it's based on, well, I know someone in there, so I'm rooting for them. Like, it's really good to root for like the people that you're acquaintances with or friends with, and for you to have a whole family of them, a whole ton of them with the Bucks, it makes it hell yeah, you're rooting for them, and you will forever. It's super cool.
For sure, man.
Number four, this might be one of the harder questions, or maybe not. Tell me, from your time working at Auburn, either stint, the most memorable game.
It's got to be the kick six, man. I was working for 24/7. I'd gone down to the field. I was right behind the goalpost that Chris Davis caught the ball in. And I was actually telling the story a couple of days ago to one of my coworkers at STN, and I hadn't even watched the video, but I pulled a video out, or my camera out, and I just started filming. And the kick six happened, and I was just ghosted, like completely statued there. I couldn't believe what had happened.
Wow.
And I turn around, and all of the students from the student section are just jumping on the field. And I'm like, I'm going to die after seeing one of the coolest sports moments in history. And so I've got a video of everybody running through, just pure joy and excitement. It was one of the coolest moments. I can still like remember the whole thing in my head, how it all went down. It's just so vivid in my memory, but that one was insane. And I think the craziest part about that was 2 weeks before, I was at the 20-yard line when for the prayer in Jordan Hare. And I was like, you can't beat that. That's the coolest moment in sports history right there. And then 2 weeks later, it was like, okay, no, maybe that isn't as cool as I thought it was. Actually, it's really cool that we saw the kick six.
Man, you're so fortunate to be part of like two of the most memorable plays, not just in Auburn history, but in college football history, heck, in sports history. I get goosebumps just thinking about it, let alone times that by a million by being there on site with your heart going up and down for the game. Just wow. That's so cool, man.
The sports gods have blessed me, man. I got to be thankful for all these different moments for sure.
So awesome. On number 5 for you, Austin, tell me, this may or may not be felt by everybody, but there is a bit of a narrative out there that, hey, this college athletics content is better than pro sports content. And I don't know, I'm not here to say whether that's true or not, but what do you make of that narrative? And if that is the case, or if people think it's the case, why do you think that is?
I think the gap has closed a lot. I think this narrative was really set once Clemson just started being
Yeah.
the greatest content department in America. I mean, I think that without Clemson, I don't think that you have a lot of these different creative departments that you have now. And so when that was happening, it kind of spurred a lot of collegiate athletic departments to be like, okay, hey, look, we need to buy in a little bit more. Look what they're doing. Look what their, results are recruiting wise, because they're really investing in creative and they believe in it. And so you really started to kind of have a tidal wave where a lot of other college departments that were recruiting against them then started soldiering up and getting more creatives that could go out there and do that same type of content. And when that happened, it was kind of a shift, and a lot of NFL teams were thinking, we could do this too. The digital side is starting to grow. We're actually being able to make, drive revenue off of the social side. So we need content creators and talented ones. And so you started to see a lot of professional teams start to pick off some of the college creatives and get them up there. And then so now the gap has closed so much that I think, you could argue that maybe like top to bottom college athletics may be more talent, or I don't even want to say talented, but they just have the right people in the right places to tell these stories. I don't think that is like a huge gap anymore. And I think a lot of more professional teams have bought in and they understand the importance, and now that they're very, very close. But yeah, I think you could probably say that maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Now, I don't think it's necessarily true.
Yeah, no, I actually, as I've been thinking about this subject and hearing your response, like you really think about that moment when you kind of mentioned Clemson as being a bit of the genesis, and all of a sudden, I think coaches had this thing go off in their head, being like, "Hey, we can build another moat, another barbershop, or another water slide, but then the new arms race for winning recruits is in content, in social and digital, and so that all of a sudden became that mandate of we got to be the best of this, and then." Versus pros, where in the college space you're actively competing against the other schools for recruits. In the pros, it's awesome if some whatever Cowboys fans like the Bucks content, but they're not buying tickets to tomorrow's game. Whereas if a kid growing up in Texas likes what Miami's putting out there, well, maybe he's gonna go to Miami now and play for them. So it's that competitive element on the social side is plenty of ego, maybe sponsorship money to some degree, but not to the level where it's the truly the lifeline of college athletics. So there's a super interesting topic there that we can dive into for hours as well. We'll add that to the
list. Yeah, man, it's so interesting when you think about how things got to where we are now. And every time I think about it, I just think of Clemson, Ohio State, Oregon, how they were really on the front end, and even Texas, like. They just created something that almost every other college looked at and was like, we need to do that too if we're going to win. Yeah. So it's super cool though, how that all shook out.
So I want to hear with number 6, you spent a lot of years working in social media and sports, and you're still working with not just sports, but entertainment and brands now on the STN digital side. So in this, especially in this, the nonstop nature of social, of having all this sports entertainment happen on the weekends, on holidays. What's your tip? What's your key to keeping your sanity, keeping your mental health? I think that's something that's becoming a bigger and bigger subject for good reason these days. Of like, what would you recommend for someone that's working in your space to keep sanity?
Yeah, mental health. I think the coolest part about the mental health aspect is over the last few years, it's just become such more of a talking point and a topic of organizations actually executing on. When you work in social, it's 24/7. When you work in content, it never, stops. You're always having to innovate. You're always having to create something new. So you feel like you're always working in that space. Even when you're off, you're on social in some regard, looking for inspo, like you're constantly on it. So number one, is organization, is truly organizing the things that you're working on, prioritizing the important parts, maybe knocking down some of the things that aren't necessarily as important as your top 3 things that you're working on. Another big thing, if you have a hobby, like if you have something that you really enjoy and it just brings you joy in life, if it's golfing or fishing or, running or whatever the case may be, do that. like, even if it's for a limited amount of time, even if you know that you may only have an hour to go out and do something like that, go out and do it, because it's something that you enjoy doing, and it gives you just a refresh and a reset. And you have to always be thinking of ways that you can just kind of do a hard reset on your system. And that's one way that I used to always just be like, hey, I'm going to go to the driving range, or, hey, I'm going to go, go out for a run, and just not even listen to music, like just literally just clear my head. And I think that's one of the most important things. Do the things that you enjoy when you have that time. Don't just use that time that you have allocated to not working just to sit on the couch and scroll through TikTok. Like, go do something, give your body something to think about other than your job.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to go about it, man.
Yeah, I it's perfectly said. I mean, for me, it was going to the gym and weightlifting. Like when I was in there, I was checked out of the world for an hour and a half, and
yeah,
the notifications could wait. Usually,
yeah, that's going to the gym, man. That's one of the best ways to do it, man. Just go in there, be focused on what you're doing then, and kind of be where your feet are, and go with that. That's one of the best ways.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
it,
have some way to turn off and unplug, even if you're not literally unplugged.
Yeah, no doubt.
This is gonna be a fun one. You can keep it as brief or as extensive as you'd like. Just take me inside an Auburn football game day at home. What's a day in the life like for you, or what was it like for someone in the social media management role for an Auburn football game day at home?
Yeah, so my most recent stint at Auburn was during COVID, so it had changed a lot from my first time there. But the stress was so different. When I was working there the first time, I was there like 5 hours before kickoff, and just going over my checklist and making sure that I knew what needed to be done, and whatever producer was producing the shot list that I wanted them to go for, and having our songs picked out for pregame vibes that we'd put out, and like all this other stuff. And I would just be there super early and just like locked in. And I would just be so stressed. I'm like 2 Red Bulls in, I'm just like vibrating, like I'm just losing my mind. But my last stint at Auburn, it was so less stressful. I knew what we had to do, working with our producers, our photographers, our designers on what we were doing from a storytelling component. I had everybody in the right place, just so much more organized, and I just didn't have that anxiety of, are we going to miss something? So I would be in there, 2.5 hours before kick, get there, know when the team's pulling up. Me and Carter Gustin are sitting there waiting with our cameras ready to roll. We would already have divvied up what we were doing from a pregame standpoint, if we were going live during warmups, or if we were going to, do more just one-off videos from a cell phone, having a Osmo mobile running around, getting cool shots, immediately putting those on social. Fortunately for me, I also had Cody Voga, who was my in-game social media tweeter. Dude is a hoss on the sticks when you give it to him on Twitter. Dude's just throwing out all sorts of rap references and dad jokes and everything else. So dude was awesome. He helped me out a ton, so I didn't have to worry about that in game. So in game, I was shooting on the bench and getting shots that Carter would use for our post game video and that kind of thing. So we would get through with the game. We'd be in the locker room. We're celebrating, getting all those different shots, sending that over into Carter after we're done. Then I get the social media sticks back from Josh and Cody, and I'm now rocking and rolling and posting our post game stuff. And then community management, where I'm going in, replying. We're just saying this is a win. Going back in, replying to all the War Eagles and all the excitement. I'm up probably or still working probably 4 or 5 hours after the game, getting highlights and everything from the video staff, making sure that Carter's in a good place with his video, making sure that we're good with our photos that we're putting out of the game, and highlighting all that stuff. And then, it's just a constant rolling of, all right, graphically, we had Anthony Schwartz that went over 100 yards. We had Bo Nix that did this, whatever, and kind of divvying up, and then going into my trusted Trello organization board and putting everything in there, tagging them, putting details in there, and just kind of getting organized. And also planning the week out of what we were going to do on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday.
Ugh.
Flip the page. So yeah, I know that's terrible. I'm sorry that you had to sit through all that, but that's kind of how everything would go on a game day for us.
Oh, I love those. Those are some of my favorite questions to ask, or kind of take us into that time and what that day is like. And I think I need to go lie down now, just hearing about it. But
I'm sorry, man. That's on me. That's on me.
Hey, it's more just tipping my hat to you for putting in all that time and putting in those days. And the Auburn fans were fortunate that you guys worked your butts off every game day and beyond. So
Yeah, man.
All right, we need some nourishment and refreshment. So it's time for the food question that we always have to ask. Number 8, tell me, if I come down there and hang out with you at Auburn, in Auburn, tell me the best meal to get and where to get it.
So this is the hardest question that you asked me, straight up. I'm gonna have to do 2. All right, but
That's cool,
I'll do a priority 1 is we would go to Live Oaks. We'd get you a Truck Stop Honey craft beer, and we'd get you a taco burger, which is an Angus beef burger with beans in it, guacamole, tomato, and then they give you a side of queso that you and chips. So you're like eating chips and dipping your burger in this queso. After you're done with it, you feel like you have arrived at heaven's gates. Insanely good, man. So good. And my second one is Taco Rita. It's a taco joint downtown Auburn. They have a Nashville hot chicken taco that will knock your socks off, and not just like in a spicy way, but it's just so good. And they also do great margaritas. Shout out to Taco Rita. Y'all are insanely good.
Jeez, my mouth's watering. You had me at Taco Burger, and then you doubled down with dipping in queso, and then we get hot chicken. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go to Live Oaks after we're done here. I'm straight up. I'm going. I gotta go have one now.
Save me one in the future, man. That sounds amazing. Number 9. Give me a couple of non-Bucks and non-Auburn, just so you can't play any favorites. But whether they're sports or not, just give me a couple of accounts that you've liked recently and why.
Yeah. This is awesome because I feel like these teams need to be super proud of what they've been doing on social. But the Carolina Panthers, they have put together such a rock star creative team. They've added so many super talented creatives that are innovative and they're not afraid to try new things. And so they have been so good with new memes and integrating their team and their brand into memes. And really having fun on social media, which is what the whole thing's about. And so they do such a good job on that. And in the same vein, the Chargers, like, golly, the same type of thing. And they've been doing it for the last couple of years where they are just not afraid to try new things. They're not shying away from who they are. They may not win every single game, but number one, they have some of the coolest unis, period. And like, they have some great personalities and they just, like, they lean into it and their fan base loves them for it. So those two for sure. And then the Colorado Rockies, I can't say enough about how good they are on social. They do such a good job with community management. They do such a good job of having fun on social and engaging with their fans and telling their players stories. And that's not always the case in the MLB, but they are definitely one of the top teams that are able to do that. So I love following along with those three. Those are must follows. Just
some fantastic calls, and definitely all three teams for which I have definitely seen myself seeing tweets or Instagram comments are like, I'm not a fan of the team, but I love their social, or I only love
exactly.
Yeah, and that is a hell of an endorsement for their social media accounts. That's super cool. All right, one more to go out on now. This is going to be a tough one, and maybe you are going to be a little bit biased if you are shooting for the stars. But tell me, the 2021 College Football National Champion will be blank.
All right, so the consensus answer here, I think most people would say Alabama is going to win it, but I don't necessarily believe that. I've done my research. I'm a huge college football fan outside of just working at Auburn. I follow the sport, follow all the storylines, everything that's going on. I think the 2021 College Football National Champion is going to be Texas A&M, and I'll tell you why. I will tell you why. Their offensive line needs a little bit of help. They've got a solid defense. Offensively, they're stacked with Jalen Weidermeyer, who's one of the top tight ends in the nation. They've got a 1,000-yard running back coming back in Isaiah Spiller. They've got Anais Smith, who is an insanely good wide receiver. And they just named their starting quarterback today that is going to be insanely good. So that team, especially having Jimbo, who's been there, he's done that, he knows how to win. I think if there's ever been a year where someone different's coming out of the West, I think it's this year. I think it's A&M.
I'm sorry, I'm too busy now. I'm putting my futures bet down on Haynes King for Heisman. Haynes King for Heisman.
Can we please put an asterisk by that and say that I'm not responsible for any lost funds from
I like the boldness. I think everyone is circling that this was supposed to be the year for A&M, that they were ready to take that next step, and so I'm sure there's a lot of fans in College Station that would love for you to be right on that one. And
yeah, man.
Either way, let's be thankful that we have a season coming, and it's I'm excited for it to start.
Absolutely, golly, it's coming in fast too, isn't it? Oh. Jeez.
Hell yeah. I had a great time rolling the trees on Tumor's Corner. Now your chance to take over the podcast and tell us your social media all-star to follow. Just tell us who they are, what platform they're on, and why they're worth following.
I've got two here. Number one, every single person in social media sports needs to be following Tyson Hutchins out of Clemson. He is one of the greatest in trying new content, keeping up with what's going on in real time in social media, and just really having an awesome voice and understanding how to resonate. The dude is one of the OGs. So definitely go follow him on Twitter. I have one more. You have to go follow Andy Bowers on Twitter as well. This dude is hilarious. He worked with the Hawks, then he worked with the Sixers, and now he's over at 160/90. He is so funny. He's got great memes. His meme game is extraordinary. So give him a follow on Twitter as well.
Those are a couple of phenomenal call outs. So I will definitely second those, and great job on the shout outs. And how about you, Austin? Where can we find you as well as all things STN Digital on social?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Austin W. Penny, and you can check out all the cool stuff that STN Digital is doing on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. Or no, not on Facebook. Twitter and Instagram. Check them out, or on web at stndigital.com.
And if you don't know STN Digital, you probably do. You probably have seen some of the amazing content they've produced for some of the biggest brands, organizations in and out of sports. And they are building an all-star team, and Austin is one of the newer entries to that team, and just super happy for you to be there, and cannot tell you how much I appreciate you giving some of your time today. Great insight, fantastic conversations, and we need a part 2, part 3, part 4. But thank you so much.
Man, I've enjoyed it. I've had such a great time. I lost track of time. We were just having such a good time here. So yeah, thank you again for having me on. Had a blast, and maybe we'll get a part 2 down here sometime.
Hell yeah.
Man, what a great time catching up with Austin Penny, someone I've been able to know now for a handful of years throughout his career, going back to his first stint at Auburn and his second stint at Auburn, and just really thoughtful, really sharp, bright, innovative, introspective. Can't have enough good adjectives about Austin Penny, and I look forward to continuing to watch the great stuff that he's going to do at STN Digital as he continues on there, and just a ton of fun. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did today. Again, this is Neil Horwitz. I'm the host. Your host. You can find me on Twitter at NJH287. Obviously, getting toward the end here. Hit me up on LinkedIn, and you can connect me there and find more content. Visit the website, dsmsports.net, where you can find all the episodes and other blog content. And, of course, follow along on the podcast with whatever platform you prefer. Every other week, new episodes coming at you. That was episode 202. And until next time for episode 203, this is Neil Horwitz for the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast.